So, good day to each and everyone. So, I am going to discuss to you chapter 13, Information Technology Architecture. So, here's the outline. First, what is hardware and software architecture? Second, examples of different architectures. Third, matching design to an architecture. And lastly, contemporary trends in architecture. So, first, we're going to discuss the first outline, that is what is hardware and software architectures. So here are the subtopics of this outline. First is mainframe for high volume. Second is the mid-range computer is usually smaller. Third, the PC is totally different. Next is how do you share? Next is power to the desktop with a friendly interface. Next is moving towards the client server model. Next is what is infrastructure? And lastly, the advantages and disadvantages of standards. So, here's the introduction. In today's environment, this architecture is likely to include network workstations on the desk of most employees, larger computers on the network for processing transactions and sharing large database, and intranet, and extranet access. In the early days, designers were advised to develop systems without considering the hardware or software that would be used to run the system. Design, after all, should be independent of hardware and software. Of course, available hardware and software had to influence how a system would operate. So, what is hardware and software architectures? So, first, let us discuss what is hardware architecture. So, it is the representation of an engineered or to be engined electronic or electromechanical hardware system, and the process and discipline for effectively implementing the design or designs for such a system. Next is software architecture. Is the fundamental structure of a software system and the discipline of creating such structures and systems. So, architecture is the place where all the technical topics were discussed so far come together. An organization architectures included computers, often of different sizes from different manufacturers, operating systems, frequently more than one, languages for developing applications, database management programs, package application software, networks ranging from those within a department on international private network to the internet. So, characterize architectures according to several criteria. So, here are some criteria. So, first, volume of processing. The volume is the volume of information processed may determine the kind of architecture needed. Database. The amount of data storage available on each class of computer is increasing, but in general, more data still can be stored on large computers. Interface. What kind of user interface generally associated with a given option? Number of users, how many users can the architecture support? Lastly, discretion. How many processing and ad hoc analysis can the user do on his or her own? So, mainframes for high volume. Mainframe, the tradi- Mainframe, the traditional machine for developing application, they are used for very high volume transactions processing. Mainframes are also associated with extremely large database. It is not usually for organizations such as banks and insurance companies to have data files that contain billions of characters or gigabytes or even trillions of bytes or terabytes. Mainframes application typically feature a large number of users of the data. These machines are designed to manage huge communications network in which users use, using remote terminal access the mainframe of its database. However, what the user can do is fairly limited. So, as we all know, mainframe for high volume. So, dira siya sa kanang pang gigabyte, pwede pa siya pang terabytes, diba? So, dako-dako gud iyang kuan, diba? And then, pero kuan lang siya kanang ang imong paggamit is limited lang jud siya. Dili siya kanang kuan ba kanang taas. So as you all know, here's a table of typical architecture. So here's the option: mainframes, mid-range fault tolerant PCs and workstation, LANs, client server, and mo na siya ang volume sa mainframe. So high volume siya, transactions processing, and then sa mid-range is medium volume lang siya na transactions designed for OLTP niya. Ang PC is, ang iyang volume is low, while ang LANs is low to medium, and then client server is vary. So, ang database sa mainframe is large, sa mid-range is medium to large, and then ang PC is medium to small, and then sa LAN is same rapod sa PC, medium to small, and then ang sa client server is small to large. And then sa interface is, ang mainframe is simple, nga sa mid-range po is simple, and then sa PC is elaborated, while sa LAN po elaborated, same po sa client server. So, ang number of users sa mainframe is large, so daghan-daghan. Nga sa mid-range is moderate number lang, so sakto lang. PC kay wala na tag sa LAN is multiple, client service multiple. Discretion sa mainframe is limited. And then sa mid-range pod, limited. While sa PC, LANs, and client server, extensive siya. So here's the figure of the mainframe and mid-range architecture. So, the mid-range computer is usually smaller. So, a mini computer or mid-range system generally process lower volumes of data and smaller database. The demarcation between mainframe and mid-range, however, is not always easy. Some mid-sized computer with extremely high transaction processing speeds are designed specifically for online transaction processing or OLTP application. Mid-range computers are also used extensively in data communication system. So, nakita nato siya dito sa katong table sa katong karga ganina. So, the PC is totally different. So, the personal computer first arrived, users treated it as a computer that belonged to them. Much of the early motivation for using PCs was to get away from the traditional information system or IS department. At first, there was hardly any software for PCs, but entrepreneurs soon saw tremendous opportunity in the eventual market of millions of computers, with each owner buying their package. Of course, the package for the PC had to be a lot different from the package for the mainframe or mini. First, a user who was not a technology professional would evaluate and use the PC package. The program had to be easy to use with a pleasant interface, giving rise to the term user-friendly, opposed to user-surely in-house custom systems. So, the users control the first PC and entertain their own data for analysis. The most popular uses of PC are word processing, spreadsheet analysis, presentation graphics, and database management. Through the numbers of applications, package continues to expand rapidly. User control not only frees the user from dependence on the system staff, it also provides extensive discretion as to what program runs at what time on a computer. Since the computer is not shared, the user can choose when and what to run, has unheard of freedom. So here's a figure of a personal computer architecture. So mano siyang standalone, and then as you can see na diri ang client, and then napod diri ang file server. Yeah, client. So as you all know, katong last na kong gibasa is kanang ang kini siya is pang one person lang din siya, one at a time ang mo gamit. So how do you share? Mainframe's user work with the PCs, they develop new ideas for how they can be used. Within departments, the idea of sharing become popular. Why not share common data expense devices like laser printers and so on? The local area network or LAN makes this possible. The LAN enables user to share data through a special PC that is dedicated file servers. Now the PC can serve multiple servers who want to share data. Some companies have developed applications that use originally like candidates for a mid-range system by using a LAN. Given present technology, there is some overlap at the boundaries for all the options. So you will see at the table 13-1. So here is it, the mainframe and mid-range architecture. So communication network. So as you can see, here's the mainframe and the mid-range computer. So power to the desktop with a friendly interface. So the personal computer made it possible for users to develop some of their own solutions to problems. But the user soon saw the advantages of being networked. At some point, we will not know or care which computer is working for us. The workstation on our desk will provide an interface to a large network of computers. So some computers will have special purposes. For example, a large machine may be in charge of the database, while specialized processor perform the role of file servers. All this computing power will be delivered to your desktop, completing a movement that began when the first online system were developed in the 1960s. So diri mananay mga advantages ang kanang personal computers. So moving towards the client-server model. The connection of PCs to networks of mid-range computer and mainframes has resulted in the client-server architecture. A client on a personal computer connects to a PC, mid-range computer or mainframe that is the server. The server retrieves data and manipulates it in some way for the client. The client may also process the data further after moving it to his or her PC. A network may have more than one server. A user can connect to a number of different servers from his or her local PC. In a two-tier client-server system, the server performs most of the processing and contains the database, while the user's PC runs an interface program and does some local processing. In a three-tier system, there is a server to perform most processing and a server to host the database. So, diri is kana siya kanang so ato makuan diri na two-tier client server na po three-tier system. So, mao to nga ang two-tier client is kanang pwede siya duha ang magkanang run bitaw ang katong PC or ug ang katong mainframe ug asa nimo gikuan. So more siya kanang multiple makakuan kag multiple. So here's a figure of a mixed architecture. So mainframe, mid-range, and then mga terminal or mga PC, and then mga PC on LANs. Yeah, mo ni siya kini sa kanang kining router, so mamurag mo na siya ang kanang wifi nila ba niya. Daghan ang gagamit. So what is infrastructure? So information technology infrastructure can be defined as the hardware, software, and networks that the firm maintains for common use. Some reserve the term for items that a single business unit cannot justify on its own but that makes sense for the corporation. So here are some advantages and disadvantages of standards. So there are two kinds of standards, agreed upon and de facto. We have seen the importance of international standards in our discussion of communications and network. International standards make it possible to directly dial phones in different countries. EDI standards have encouraged the exchange of data between companies. Internet standards make possible the WW or the World Wide Web and let browsers programs display content for millions of servers. So, diri is kanang ang international standards is kanang bitaw like kanang nato diri sa Philippines and then ang atong gitawagan kito sa US so maka-communicate ka bisan naa ka sa lain nga bansa tungod ana. So, Microsoft has followed the strategy of making its products the standard for personal computers. So, Windows 98 and Microsoft Office have become a de facto standard in organizations. Such standards have both advantages and disadvantages for the customer. Standards encourages the sharing of information with minimal conversion from one application to another. We have seen that standards also facilitates interoperability. De facto standards, particularly from a single vendor, give that vendor tremendous market power and may reduce innovation. The development of the NetPC is an effort to break the de facto Wintel or Windows on an Intel processor. Personal computer standards. While our organization will most often choose a standard, it is important to recognize both advantages and disadvantages of this strategy. Microsoft Office have become a de facto standard in organizations. So, na siya mga advantages like kanang makatawag ka in other countries nga makahelp sa business but na po siya mga disadvantages akin ng standards. So here are some examples of different architectures. So here are the subtopics for this second outline. Competitive reservation systems, Travelocity, interfacing a CRS to the web, a broker workstation, Chevron Canada client server model, comparing the applications. So, beside is the figure of reservation system. So, competitive reservation systems. The major airlines have developed complex and sophisticated computerized reservation system or the CRS. You can see in the figure 13-4. American Airlines developed its Sabre system first to keep track of reservations as manual reservation systems were predicted to break down in the early 1960s with the expansion of jet travel. So other airlines followed American's lead and developed systems for their own in the 1960s and 1970s. So, in addition to reservations, CRS applications are expanded to include many other functions. The computers keep track of when flights depart and when they will arrive. So, ano siya ang gamit aning kini siya. So, matrack nila kung kanus-ak ming ming depart ang flight nga when pud ming arrive na pud sa iyang track. So, American Airlines jets send radio messages to the computer on takeoff to update flight monitors. The CRS system also helps specialists load aircraft to keep them balanced. A CRS keeps track of special meal requirements and can connect with other systems to provide rental cars and hotel rooms. So, wow, diba? Grabe maka-connect pag ka para lang maka-provide og imong rental cars and hotel rooms. So, high-tech sila atong panahon na. Pero mas high-tech na ron. So, Travelocity interfacing a CRS to the web. So, Sabre responded to the opportunities offered by the web with Easy Sabre and Travelocity. The first is an American Airlines-oriented connection to Sabre, while Travelocity is more neutral system that anyone with a browser can use to access schedules and fares as well as make reservations. So, the challenge is to provide a variety of services through a group of web servers. The customer must be able to access all the information in the Sabre database using a browser. Even though these data are normally accessed through Sabre programs running on a PC or terminal, the system has been described as a travel mall more than just an airline reservation system. The system receives feed from 5,000 data sources. The site must provide electronic commerce capabilities so that a customer can purchase a ticket. Worldview is a partner in Velocity that compiles, reformats, and sells data on travel to various companies in the travel industry. So here's a figure of here's the structure of Travelocity interfaces the web to mainframe system. So medyo tibog. So a broker workstation. The broker is both a consultant and a salesperson and is compensated based on the amount of trading he or she does for customers. The broker needs a great deal of data about the stock market, the securities and other instruments the public can buy, and the client. For many years, brokers have stock quotation terminals on their desk so that they can get the latest price of a security. The broker can set up monitors to follow a single stock or group of stock. So ang broker is pwede siya consultant, pwede po siya salesperson. So, murag kaniyang work duha-duha. So, here's a figure of a broker workstation system. So, mga satellite nga naliri ang mga PC para mag-communicate na. So, Chevron Canada client-server model. Chevron Canada used a client-server model to redesign a sale monitoring application. This application connects Chevron Canadian distributors to the Vancouver corporate headquarters and replace a 20-year-old batch processing mainframe system. This system is used for order entry, tax, inventory control, and management reporting. Over the years, it has added online transactions processing capabilities and limited decision support functions. As shown in Figure 13.7, the client-server design features a wide area network connected to local areas network. There are multiple servers along with a connection to a mainframe in San Francisco. Eventually, the system had handled about 165,000 transactions per month from over 35 remote sites. Some 65 local clients will also make requests. When completed, each client will be connected to a local server containing data relevant to that client. There will be some 300 relation tables distributed over multiple servers and replicated on a central server in a 3 GB database. So here's the figure of a client server with WANs and LANs. So nara siya ang katong sa San Francisco nga mga mainframe, so naa siya kining kuan nga warehouse, and then kanang kuan. Well, there is kini siya nga side is puro siya sa marketing, diri ang servers, file printers, and communication, and then there is ang accounting nga side. So makita nyo diri is kanang mura siya o kanang organized bitaw. So comparing the application, the broker workstation application features a much different architecture from the CRS example. The brokers do either limited or no updating of the database. The data are updated centrally at the ticker plant of copies are kept on each LAN. There is some two-way satellite transmission from broker queries of the database, but higher volume transactions with the broker's own in-house mainframe computer take place over terrestrial lines. In the Chevron case, the application is similar to the CRS in that both systems process a large number of transactions, but the airline CRS is centralized and Chevron has chosen a client-server architecture. So, of course, the Chevron system processes far fewer transactions than an airline CRS. So, diri is kanang ano siya gi-compare ang Chevron ug ang airline CRS or ang katong una na kong gikuan. So, ang Chevron system is fewer ang iyang transaction while sa airline CRS, and that is the reason it can adopt an architecture dependent on a number of small computers. It is significant that LANs and client-server systems have developed sufficient power to be used in transaction processing application at all. With extremely high volumes of transactions updating, you still need a mainframe or large mid-range computer. The Velocity offers a complete different architecture. It is a web application built on top of an existing mainframe application. This approach to reaching customers and suppliers is very common. Much of the data of interest to these users are on transactions processing mainframes. So, matching design to an architecture. So matching design to an architecture, when the architecture is a given, in many situations an application will have to run on an existing architecture because that is what the organization is willing or able to provide. In this case, the guidelines below can be used, but they must be modified to fit organizational constraints sometimes. However, the architecture can be modified to provide the appearance of a new system. It is very expensive to redesign large transaction processing system, and some firms have been updating the design of this system by hiding the old system behind a new PC interface. One option is to maintain the mainframe system solely to process transactions and build a database. The firm adds separate servers to process queries and provide decision support software to client computers. So here is a management problem. So with the ability to embed computers in many different places, choosing and defining an architecture becomes more challenging. So the Singapore Port Authority has a variety of processors that work on moving containers from trucks to ships and vice versa. Transponders identify the truck, and a video system read the identification number of a container on the trailer. This data go over a wireless transmission to a yard control computer. The computer downloads instruction to computers on a yard crane and on the quay crane. Some researchers, especially at Xerox Palo Alto Research Laboratory, believe that computers will fade into the background completely. They will be embedded in buildings, automobiles, briefcases, and maybe even clothing. Computers will be ubiquitous, but also unobtrusive, unobtrusive at least comparing with today's computer environment. What are the implications of these trends of architecture? So how does so mo na siya ang management problem ari sa kanang kuan matching design to an architecture. So here are some suggested guidelines in matching design to an architecture. So first is start seizing an architecture at the smallest and least expensive option. Can a suggested application be completed on a PC with packages? If there are multiple users accessing a central database, the answer is probably no. The same is true if there are too many simultaneous users. A PC will probably run Windows 98 or Windows NT and will make use of popular suite of Office application that includes a spreadsheet, work processor, presentation graphics, programs, and database management system. Second is, if a standalone PC is not adequate, can a system be developed using a LAN? So the LAN accommodates multiple users who can share data files. The same software as discussed above is appropriate, but the server will probably run Windows NT. At some point, there may be too many users for the LAN, or more likely, there will be too high a volume of activity for the servers. It is also possible that the system must handle a large volume of transactions, in which case the LAN is not currently the best alternative. So, third is a client-server architecture featuring workstation or mid-range computer, as the server is a cost-effective alternative for many applications as long as the system can handle the processing load. The server here may run NT or Unix, while the client runs Windows 98. Users' application may be developed using the PC database management package or a mid-range DBMS like Oracle or Sysbase. Fourth is mid-range computers have the capacity to handle a large number of transactions and large database and can control large communication networks. You can program this system in a language of a DBMS or in a language like C++. So fifth is mainframe can handle large volume of transaction and huge database. They too excel at controlling large communication networks. If the mainframe application exists already, then you will probably be little choice in the programming language and operating system. However, if the application is new and you are using a new large computer, you may be able to use Unix as the operating system and C or a 4GL as an application development language. Six is if users need local processing power and discretionary use of computers, a mixed network including mainframes and PCs is the likely choice. So, 7 is organization today needs to have connections to the internet. They will also obtain many benefits from the intranet and possibly an extranet as well. So, here's how you deal with the problems of data. So, a fundamental aspect of design is where to keep data and where to update it. In the airline CRS, all data are maintained centrally because of the need of instantaneous information and the frequency of update. In the broker workstation system, the users do virtually no updating of the data distributed from the ticker plant because fast response is important for brokers. It is a good design decision to duplicate the data locally. The price server in each office has identical information that it accepts from the satellite dish on the roof. On the other system, the trade-off will differ. The designer has to balance response time, updating frequency, and need to up-to-date information, and the cost of duplication storage. If there are to be copies of the data, we must also be concerned with the integrity of all copies. Does each copy have to be updated whenever the master record changes? In the broker workstation, a constant stream of data updates the local file server. In other application, it may be adequate to refresh local database frequently. So, contemporary trends in architecture. So, contemporary trends in architecture, the decision in the chapter suggests that the role of the mainframe is changing. Mainframes have been making a small comeback and are likely to be around for a long time. So, mainframes are declining in cost, an estimated 50 to 75% during the 1990s, because they are because they can take advantage of some of the same technology as PCs. Mainframes are undergoing dramatic changes in their architecture as they become more modular or come to feature totally parallel operations. Vendors are producing smaller, more powerful, and more affordable mainframes. So we are switching from older, more expensively fabricated circuits to CMOS, or the complementary metal oxide semiconductors, a less expensive technology. So this technology lets the manufacturer put more logic or fewer chips and circuit boards. So IBM is also selling a line of mainframes that feature parallel architectures using RISC based technology. So a basic requirement for a new design is that the mainframe remain compatible with existing software and meet the timing requirement of online system. Within these requirements, designers are free to try novel approaches to the hardware in an effort to improve the custom or performance characteristic of mainframe. So, the role of the mainframe is evolving. Instead of performing all calculations, the mainframe will become an extremely powerful server on networks. It will handle multi-billion bytes database, providing data to client on the network. So the client will do much of the processing of these data before returning them to the mainframe server to update the database. Trends are clearly towards client-server architectures, and a variety of computers will take on the role of client or server. However, as this and the previous chapter have stressed, the future of technology is in the network, both inside the organization and externally through private internet. The architecture here is pure client server. The power of technology comes from the combination of computational capabilities, huge searchable database, and communication. These technologies have truly changed the world. So, as we all know, technology is evolving manjud. So, it is a big part of our life na manjud na ang technology karon, such as laptops for like online class, and then cell phone for communicating our loved ones. So it is a huge impact in our lives na gid ang technologies, and um, it has some advantages and disadvantages to the world and to our lives too. So okay, so here's the chapter summary of this topic. So first is the designer used to be able to remain independent of the hardware and software architecture until fairly late in the design process. Now architecture interacts with the design because it is central to decisions about the user interface, the volume of processing, and the design of the database. So second is architecture is the place where all of IT comes together: computers, database, communication, and networks. So third is architecture is also concerned with the location of processing and the pattern of computer users access. Fourth is architecture is closely related to infrastructure, the stock of technology available in the firm. Investment in infrastructure provide you with the technology to take advantage of new opportunities to innovate with IT or the information technology. Fifth, Mainframe vendors are working to improve cost or performance characteristics of their products compared with smaller computers. An increase in sales for new mainframes suggests they are succeeding. Firms use mainframes for high volume processing tasks and to continue executing critical legacy systems. 6. Mid-range computers may be used for an online transaction processing as servers in networks. 7. The PC is the workstation of choice for the average user. 8. The most popular architecture today is client-server, where client PCs connect to servers that may be other PCs, mid-range computer, or large computers. All these computers have a network link to the internet. The firm is also likely to make use of intranets and extranets to make information available internally and to externally business partners. 9. It is difficult to develop guidelines for choosing an architecture. In general, you will want to develop an architecture that costs the least while providing the processing power you need. 10. Frequently, you will confront an existing architecture because the firm has been using technology for a number of years. You will only be able to make small changes to this architecture because of the application that currently run on it. 11. While you want a low-cost architecture, remember that transforming the organization requires an adequate technological infrastructure. Otherwise, you will not be ready to take advantage of opportunities that arise to innovation with technology. So, an IT architecture is complex for all but the smallest organization. The good news is that you will probably not have to decide on one alone. Developing an IT or information technology architecture involves both managers and information technology professionals. As a manager, you need to see if there is a coherent plan for an architecture and if decisions about the acquisition of new hardware, software, and communications devices are consistent with that plan. A second managerial responsibility is to be sure the firm has an IT infrastructure that allows the firm to take advantage of technology when now when new opportunities arises. So, thank you for listening and God bless us all. Thank you.